I saw UFO somewhere in New Mexico on the way back home. Maybe I don't know. It was green. I think it saw me. I wish you could stay, 'cause I got a lot to say.
Welcome, everyone, to the Our Strange Skies podcast. I am your host, Rob Christofferson, and back with us again, the one and only Rich Haddam. Rich, welcome back, man.
Thank you for having me, Professor. I'm happy to be here. I'd like you to know I've done all the homework, and I am prepared for the oral exam.
Excellent. Because we've got a doozy of a case here on our hands, and I've never seen you go to this excessive length in terms of going through the notes, adding your own notes to them. Really, you're going all in on this, Rich.
It's basically a lot of question marks,
yeah,
and then a lot of me writing just "oh fuck" or "what the fuck."
Yep. Yeah, that's what this case is. Today, folks, we're talking about the San Pedro Haunting, which is like, I'm surprised it's not as infamous as it should be for a poltergeist case. Like, it's not like name brand in terms of poltergeist cases. And that's weird to me, especially considering like it was investigated by, I don't know what Barry Taff's reputation is these days, but I assume he's still well respected, in terms of his body of work.
That's all I can think of is that a couple things. One, there has not been a definitive volume written, like a book, where you can just go, okay, this is the book and it's the go-to, so that people just sort of have a place to just, everything all at once. I don't know the guy's reputation. I'll say this, and listeners, get ready. There is so much going on. It's almost one of those cases where you're into it, and then suddenly you're like, oh, wait, now we got a little too much. I may have had, I think my eyes were bigger than my stomach on this case.
Yeah, because this is like paranormal, like harassment to an upteenth degree, like kind of worse than anything that I have ever really read about. Like I've read enough poltergeist cases to know that like stuff seems to be kind of like spaced out a little bit. You'll get something and then like maybe a couple weeks later you'll get something else, but it's like this stuff seems to be like daily. And I think what makes this case interesting is that and what we'll get into is the culprit claims to not be, it claims to be a human spirit or a collective of human spirits, which is interesting to me. Like, it's not the only case in which that, that's the foregoing kind of theory, but like this was weird in that kind of revelation a little bit, I would say.
Something felt like it was getting fed, because it got worse. There's something about it sort of, if you follow from the beginning to the end, it feels like at a certain point it became very there was a connection between the people experiencing things, maybe somehow other destructive, hungry ghost forces got in on it because they were like, "Ooh, there's a lot of attention over here." It almost like it changed from just a poltergeist case to some sort of very destructive haunting.
Yeah, and
like more so than your typical poltergeist.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just a lot of poltergeisty like stuff mixed in with some spirit that had a vendetta, and a vendetta in particular against one investigator, and we'll get into the reason why they have a vendetta against him. But the San Pedro Haunting case, it's also called the Jackie Hernandez Poltergeist case. It's considered like one of the most violent poltergeist cases ever documented. And there are we're going to put a content warning in here because there are kind of allusions to domestic abuse in this case, especially when it comes to Jackie's husband in one in particular moment in this story. But it's just so, yeah, it's like to the ninth degree, this case. So it all begins on August 8th, 1989. Dr. Barry Taff had received a phone call from a woman named Susan Castaneda on behalf of Jackie Hernandez, and she described these like frightening apparitions and weird sounds that were coming from the attic of Jackie's home. And Dr. Taff, by this time in '89, he's a parapsychologist. He's most famous for working on a case which was later adapted into a novel and then a film called The Entity. The novel is by Frank DiFelita. It is not a great novel. I own it. It's very bad. The case has a reputation because it is her claim. The woman's claim in this case was that she was sexually assaulted by unseen entities or figures that she claimed were kind of Asian looking or something like that. It's a very strange case, but it's one in which Dr. Barry Taff kind of made a reputation because he started to document the goings on in her home, got like really good photographic evidence. There's like one infamous photo in which you see the streak of light that kind of is like over the witness in the case that they had gotten on camera. But it's Taff is also he's written a book. I think it's called UFOs Above, Ghosts Below. It's kind of a really bad title, but it details, kind of some of the handful of cases that he's worked on. But
well, which sort of it brings up a question that I have, Rob. There's nary a UFO in this entire case. What is it doing on our strange skies?
Well, this is we're doing Halloween's right around the corner, and you got to get people in the mood. So,
oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh, this is definitely Halloween fair. Okay, I get it. All right. Yeah, giving the people what they want.
This is the like definitive Halloween episode. Like, we're bringing the scares here with this one, folks, because there is a lot of scary stuff. I think the other kind of wide exposure that Barry Taff has received more recently was I think he was involved with the investigation of the quote unquote demon house that Zach Bagans bought. That was like, I want to say 3 years ago now at this point, but he supposedly suffered some health problems in connection with that case. It's a little weird, but Barry Taff's been doing this stuff since the 70s, so he's been doing it a long time.
He sounds a little bit like the Warrens, where he's sort of branding himself as the guy who goes after the evil, destructive, malevolent spirits that are demonic. And rather than just, I'm rather calmly just investigating whatever comes along. It's like every case he's involved in, suddenly people are being attacked by evil spirits.
Right. And I will say that, like, if you listen to him in like, coast to coast interviews, he tries to be as like down to earth about things and as skeptical about things as possible. But he does seem to be connected with a large number of cases which have these like very extreme elements to them. This case, and the thing about this case is like, he's not as involved in it as the videographers, but he puts together a small group to document what was happening at the Hernandez home, and among them, he brought his girlfriend Terry Culler, a friend Larry Brooks, Barry Conrad, who is the owner of what is now known as Barcon Productions. He's which is like a video production company. He's worked on films. He's done like corporate things, a lot of stuff. He met Barry Taff in 1987, and he had always kind of had this interest in kind of Fortean topics and stuff, and meeting him kind of reignited that. And another guy that came along and kind of the like real target of a lot of this stuff, aside from Jackie, is a man named Jeff Wheatcraft, who was he often worked as Barry Conrad's video assistant on projects. And he'd actually been a teacher in the Midwest. He moved to New York to pursue photography, got really good at it. Then he moved from New York to California to continue his pursuit. So he was very skeptical person by nature, but not by the end of this case. Both Conrad and Wheatcraft had met on the set of the film Platinum Blonde. So
as most parapsychologists do.
It's practically a trope here in like the like paranormal world. Like, everybody met.
That's Rob. That's where you and I met.
Exactly. It's like Platinum Blonde is the like it's kind of the time travel portion of like any paranormal people with interests meeting. It is the hub. Everybody met on the set of Platinum Blonde. It's just how it is. But Jackie herself had a couple friends over, Chrissy Zikovich and Susan Castaneda. Her strange husband Al was there, keeping an eye on her two children, Jamie, who was 3 years old.
Did you say her strange husband?
Estranged husband. I mean,
estranged. He was estranged.
Yeah, he was estranged for sure. Al's not the greatest person in this story, and while he doesn't play the biggest part, he bad husband material is what I would label him under. Definite bad husband material, but he had his own demons that he was working on. He had an alcohol problem, but
the stuff like that sort of sticks out because it's hard not to hear a story like this and ask why. And I'm sure your listeners and certainly you and I know that poltergeist cases seem to have, they share certain elements. One of them being, a young person, sometimes a young woman seems to be the focus. That's not really here in this case, as far as I could tell. But because the haunting became so extreme, it's easy to look back and go, well, what was good? There must have been some emotional turmoil going on among the living people that somehow brought out this in the spirit world, and somehow the two, sort of linked up. Those energies all matched, and the spirits found their way into our realm. And I think that's why, even though he wasn't a big part of the story, he sort of looms over the story.
Yeah, it definitely does. And just given the nature of how things unfold, it definitely plays a significant part in the story. But Jackie had separated from her husband, Al, in November of 1988, and she moved into a one-bedroom, quote, turn-of-the-century bungalow on 11th Street in San Pedro. Now, Rich, you've been to San Pedro many a times. Can you just give us a little idea of what San Pedro is like?
Well, it's really hard to describe. It's a working class town that's I would say the majority of its shoreline is devoted to industry and shipping. So it's a big port, but it's the kind of port where you're seeing those enormous ships with those containers, those big rectangular, things coming in from China and, various places and being offloaded by enormous cranes. For most of your listening audience, if you want to know what that part of San Pedro is like, watch Lethal Weapon 2. And the end of Lethal Weapon 2 will give you a really great idea of San Pedro and sort of the working, shipping port that it is. But then if you go to one side of it, it's Long Beach, which is a bit more touristy, and that's where the Queen Mary is moored. And of course, the Queen Mary has a huge reputation for being haunted. But Long Beach, you can go and there's a boardwalk and there's shops and restaurants and stuff, and you can enjoy sort of a day at the beach in Long Beach. And then if you go a little, so that's maybe south of San Pedro, but right there. And then if you just go just north, I'm most familiar with a place called Point Fermin Park and Lighthouse, which is sort of a cliff above the Pacific Ocean on a promontory, a little stretch called Portuguese Bend. And I assume maybe it's because the profile of the coastline resembles Portugal, maybe. But this is an area where there's this park, and you walk up to the little brick cement fence at the end, and you're looking straight out onto the water, and you're looking straight down maybe 60, 70 feet to the water and the waves, and sometimes there's seals and stuff like that. But it's a really beautiful park. And I've been going there since I was a child. So if you're where I am in Los Angeles, in Pasadena, and you look at a map, literally just draw a straight line all the way down. You'll be tracing your finger down the 110 freeway, all the way south through downtown LA, all the way down into San Pedro. And then you have to get off on a street called Gaffey, which just continues that straight line all the way to the water. But as you get off on Gaffey and you're driving toward the water, if you make a left on 11th Street, you'll be at this house. Okay. And it's just a neighborhood. I mean, there's, on Gaffey, it's basically all just, muffler repair shops and McDonald's and Burger King and Taco Bell. I mean, that's what we're talking. And then you make a little turn. And it's so funny because I know now that I've driven past this place and come within a block of it 1,000 times. Because you take Gaffey if you want to go to Point Fermin Park, and that's where I would take the kids. When I had nothing else to do to entertain the kids, I'd take them down there. If I'd known, I would have taken them to the intensely demonic, haunted location where they would be murdered, but I never thought of it. I didn't know about it. I will tell you this, though. The hauntings took place at 593 11th Street in San Pedro, and that building does not exist anymore. If you go to your Google Maps and go to the street view, it is an empty patch of land. They got rid of this place, and probably a good idea.
Yeah. The landowner, the guy that owned the property, he didn't like that it had this reputation for being haunted because there was a lot of turnover associated with it. There were a lot of people that experienced things in the home. And I mean, it's an old home. It's a turn of the century home. So it had been in existence for almost 90 years by the time that Jackie had moved in. So
wait, you're saying there are other people besides the Hernandez family experienced supernatural? Oh, I didn't know that. And was that afterwards or before or both?
Both. Barry Conrad did write a book about this case. I read it. It's
I'm wrong then. There is a book.
Well, here's the thing. Like, he needed an editor badly on this book. Like, it is
self-published.
It's self-published, but it also has just like a lot of bloat to kind of make it longer. There's the one good thing that it has going for it is it has a lot of pictures in it. So
you say that about every book, Rob.
But I mean, like with this one, the pictures do help because like a lot of this story is how it's documented, and like these guys go to great lengths. They have cameras with them all the time, and yeah, that's it right there.
Is that it?
That is
just
it.
Found it on Amazon. Here you go, guys.
Yep.
An unknown encounter, a true account of the San Pedro haunting.
It's a terrible name for a book, but the only reason he went with it is because it's the name of the documentary. And the cover is god awful. It's just terrible.
Wow, it's 352 pages, so he did manage to appropriately bloat it to a
It's
respectable length,
just
and it's 4 out of 5 stars, 9 reviews. That's all I'm saying.
it's like it's great for what it gives you, which is like a very in-depth look at the everything that went on. It's very well documented. It's just there's a lot of writing that anticipates what's going to happen, which is it takes you out of it because it's just like, it's like everything calmed down, and then all of a sudden the worst thing that could happen happens, and it's like, no, stop it. Just stop it. Just tell me. I don't need to be prepared. I'm not a child. Let's just but like if you do and I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to go and track down the book. I'll also put the link to the documentary that Barry Conrad put together in the late 90s, and did you by chance watch that documentary?
No, I watched a couple short YouTube. Well, I don't know. Maybe I did. Maybe that was it.
No.
I just watched the shorter bits.
Okay. The documentary is it's kind of like I think it's like an hour and a half, and it's very 90s, like the special effects, very 90s, very I think they were kind of going for an Unsolved Mysteries vibe to it. But it's just, it's kind of cheesy, but it's interesting. So,
so you recommend it, is what you're saying?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, you need to go watch this documentary. It's just the cheesiness along with like the story is just absolutely fantastic. But
it brings up a good point though, because there were a lot of these shows, the Unsolved Mysteries, and a hard copy and stuff like that. Do you think that's the reason this one got so much publicity, is because it sort of happened at a time when there was a big platform for these kinds of stories, especially if they were involving, Satan, because that was kind of the era for that.
I think there was a piece carried in the Los Angeles Times about this story. So like it did get some publicity, and I think it kind of had a little bit of a reputation in the 90s. But yeah, I think the culture of the 90s in terms of the paranormal, the UFOs, and kind of all that stuff coming together contributed to it because when Unsolved Mysteries started to feature paranormal stuff, there weren't a lot of shows that were doing that. They were kind of one of the first, aside from, like In Search Of, which, by that time you could catch it on, they did reruns of it on the History Channel for a while. I remember coming home after school and watching them. But
the interesting thing about the LA Times story was that it was pretty straightforward, and it seemed like they were hitting all the facts without that sort of overlay of wink wink or we're embarrassed to be reporting this. They were sort of like, well, okay, here's apparently what's been going on. And the other thing was the story ran in April. It didn't run on October 28th. Right. Which is when most newspapers feel like, all right, if we're going to run that, just wait till Halloween. Yep. So I was impressed by both of those things.
Yep. It did get, and I think part of that too was just because of how relatable the person experiencing this was, because I think a lot of people can relate to Jackie Hernandez. And one thing I need to mention before I forget about it. So Jackie Hernandez was born and raised in Saratoga Springs, New York, which is about 2.5 hours south of where I am right now. It's, if you want to go see like a big name concert that's attached to like Live Nation or something like that, you go to Saratoga Springs to see it. If you want to go see horse racing, you go to Saratoga Springs. So I am well familiar with Saratoga Springs, and her family, when she was young, moved out to San Pedro. And she grew up there. And then she met Al, they got married, and that pretty much catches you up to where we are with her. But like almost immediately after moving in, she started to feel weird things. There was one day when Al had stopped by to visit, and she also had another friend over, when they all three of them witnessed this like pencil holder that was on a desk lift up and kind of throw itself and fall to the floor. It started with small things like that. On another occasion, when her friend Darlene was visiting, her two kids were sitting in the living room, and they all heard like a crash come from the kitchen. And they found this painting, which kind of normally hung above the refrigerator, about 5 feet away from where it should be, on top of the kitchen counter. So what was even stranger is that the two nails that held it up were sitting vertically on a small table directly above the painting's normal resting place, as if somebody had just plucked them out and put them there. So
what's even stranger is that they had a painting hanging above their refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just seems like a weird place for a painting.
It does. Okay. Yeah. I don't really know the whole layout, but yeah, it does seem like an awkward place because it is such a tall appliance. But
when I'm going to the refrigerator, also I'm more interested in what's in the refrigerator.
Yeah,
I'm probably not going to be spending a lot of time looking at the painting above the refrigerator. I'm more like, I'm just going to get what I want and then leave. Then maybe I'll sit down with the food and look at a painting in my house, but not while I'm headed to the refrigerator. But that's a decorating note. And listen, Jackie's got enough problems without me criticizing her decorating.
Yep. As you can see, Rich is all about feng shui and everything. So he is here for your interior decorating needs if you need him.
Like, I'm not saying that the spirits got worked up because of her decorating, but if I was a ghost and someone did that in the house, I would be pissed off, and I might start pulling some shit too. So I'm just saying. Okay.
That's an interesting note there. If you want to piss off the spirits in your home, put paintings in places they don't belong. Just put them right above that refrigerator. It's sure to piss them off.
Has there ever been a haunting where the ghost rearranged things in a better way? So it's like, oh, well, this picture's actually been hung over by the window. It's actually an improvement. Well, you know what? I kind of like this ghost. It's got some good taste.
I keep praying for the day that story falls onto my lap, because it will be covered on this podcast.
It's like, our house was a disaster. We came home, it was cleaned up.
Yep. Just
things leapt off the floor and were actually replaced on the wall where they belonged. It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's I keep waiting for the day that the helpful poltergeist comes in and just like acts like a nanny around the home. We all need that, I think. So a month after the painting incident in the kitchen, Jackie heard what sounded like pebbles falling through the walls one night. And for nights after, she would hear this high-pitched sound coming from the attic. And the attic seemed to be the center point for all the activity in the home. It was only accessible through the laundry room off the kitchen. And often Jackie would find the attic door just kind of like ajar when nobody had gone up there. Nobody had done anything. So
that's weird.
Yeah. She would also hear kind of mumbling conversations above her coming from the attic. Also moaning sounds. She claimed to hear a man and woman in conversation, which seems to be a thing. In a lot of poltergeist cases, the witnesses talk about a man and a woman having a conversation. They can't hear it. It sounds like it's distant. They just can't make it out. But there is that element of a man and a woman having a conversation, which is weird to me.
Yeah, I would. If for those of you playing along at home, I think this case is a perfect opportunity to pull out your poltergeist bingo cards, because just thing after thing after thing, from falling pebbles to moving objects to water collecting in spots in the house where it shouldn't be collecting, weird substances leaking down the walls, out of outlets, doors suddenly being open, like the door to the attic, the moaning sounds, and then actually visual phenomenon, apparitions, faces, and weird lights. I mean, this thing had it all. So as we go through, mark your cards and then email us if you achieve Poltergeist bingo.
Yep. Yeah, you're good.
And
Rob
will have a prize for it. Rob will give you a signed copy of his forthcoming book.
When we get there, we're working on it. Okay, we're working on it. It's gonna be a while, but you know what? It's in the works. Don't worry.
Right, and you'll get an early copy. Yes. And it's not going to be just a lot of filler and pictures. This is going to be a legit book. All right.
There's
so don't be thinking it's going to be like one of these. Yeah, there'll be some. Well, okay, something mostly just of Rob. But
yeah, I'm going to put a lot of pictures of myself in it because, you know, I may be talking about UFOs, but this book is really about me. Okay, let's get that out here, out front. It's about me, and you know, you're just going to have to accept a lot of pictures of me. I'm going to get a professional photographer, and it's going to get so annoying that you'll probably leave a 1-star review, but I'm fine with that.
Look, John Keel put pictures of himself in some of his books, so you know, I mean. It didn't hurt.
Like in the Mothman prophecies, literally the first thing that he does is insert himself into the story. So, I mean,
yes, those make the best books.
Yeah.
Be subjective. I can't wait. Well, I hope I win bingo.
I don't know if you will qualify, but you know, I'll give you one anyway. Don't worry.
Okay. All right.
Another odd observance, speaking of fluids, there was one day that she noticed this kind of water coming out of the light switch, which is not a place you want water to be coming out of ever. No. And it only lasted for like a few seconds before it stopped. But there will be other substances that we will reference.
Crazy substances. I mean, there's okay. So get ready here. And again, on your bingo card, if you have substances, get ready.
Yeah. In February of 1989, an apparition started to make itself known. And this was the apparition of a man who looked emaciated. His gray skin tone and sunken features gave him the appearance of like a corpse in his 60s. He often sat cross-legged wearing a red checkered shirt tucked into high water pants. Rich, I actually have an image of this figure that I'm going to share with you in the chat here momentarily. And okay. I want your honest opinion of this figure because it is it's absolutely terrifying.
I eagerly await.
Yes, it'll take me a minute to find it because there are a lot of images associated with this case that I have saved. There it is. Okay, it'll be popping up here shortly. In the
Rob
chat.
and I are zooming. So
yes.
Here we go. A little thing has arrived in the chat.
Yeah, click on it.
Everyone knows a sketch of the old man apparition. All right. One moment. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Picture a demonic Don Knotts.
That's fair.
If you're not already, and my God, that is fantastic.
Yeah. It is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Okay, so who did the sketch?
I'm not sure if it was. I think it was like one of Barry Conrad's friends who did it, or one of the investigators took a stab at it. But that sketch.
An emaciated corpse in his 60s. Okay, that guy doesn't. I mean, but he doesn't look corpse-like. He looks fully alive.
Right. So one night when Jackie was alone, she observed this kind of purple mist float in through the window and hover for a short period of time. after which it disappeared. And then shortly after, she got up to use the bathroom, and she saw this man for the first time sitting cross-legged on her kid's bed, just like staring at her.
And it was the guy we just saw. It was Don Knotts.
Yes, it is. It is
evil Don Knotts. Okay,
evil Don Knotts. And she described, his eyes as like the epitome of evil, just staring at her. And several months later, she woke up. It was around midnight, which kind of had started to become a trend for her. She usually woke up around midnight, and in the kitchen, the man was staring out at her, just like with this like hateful look in his eyes. She felt paralyzed to the spot. She took refuge under some blankets in the living room. But every time she pulled them back to see if he was there, he was still there. And what's interesting is that every time that she sees him, he's sitting down. He's not standing. He's sitting down. In this case, he's sitting at the kitchen table. The other instance, he was sitting down on the kid's bed. So,
that sounds odd until I realized that the apparition. Excuse me. The apparition remained until the sun rose that morning. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe this explains the sitting down. If you know you're going to be there a while, you're not going to stand.
No.
And it's going to look awkward to be standing for a long time. And then it's like, you know what? Let me sit down. So he starts out sitting down because he knows he's here for a while.
He is here for a while. He's here to terrorize. She can pull those blankets from her face as many times as she wants, but he's still going to be there because that's
so bad. That is bad. That is not normal. Normally a ghost is there and barely there long enough for you to digest.
Yeah.
Now she's got a ghost. It's there long enough to become somewhat dull, except you're still scared because it's a ghost. But man, that's rough. I don't like that.
No. That fall, Jackie had purchased a calico cat named Cleo, and it didn't take long for this cat to, become uneasy all the time, kind of chasing shadows that were moving along the walls. There was one visit when Susan stopped by and they witnessed a lamp crash to the floor. And the first time that Jackie actually peeked into her attic, she was just kind of curious to see if there was money up there, because there were friends who had, purchased similar homes or were renting similar homes in the area. And they claimed that they found money in the attic, which, I have questions about that. I'm assuming it's related to drugs, but I don't know. That is what it is.
Oh, that's weird that you thought that. I just figured it was like, old people sort of getting into that hoarder thing where it's like, I know several relatives of Susan, great aunt so-and-so would hide money all around the house. This is in her old age, where it's like something might happen. And so I better just tuck just like little. And so after she died and they were cleaning out the house, they would just find envelopes everywhere. So some had $5, some had $500, just hidden around the house. It became like a game to try to find all the money. So there might not only be a drug deal gone bad.
Gotcha. As she poked her head through the attic, she saw a disembodied head that was just like floating towards her. It had, quote, pudgy features and glowing red eyes. I just screamed and fell out of the attic. That's,
That's big, but I will say not unheard of. There are because I don't typically associate apparitions and ghostly faces with poltergeist cases, but it does happen. I mean, Enfield, I think, had that. I think the South Shields poltergeist had some sort of physical manifestations. So it's not impossible, but it's pretty weird because now there's two things. Now there's evil Don Knotts and a pudgy disembodied head.
Yep. And they do not look alike. They are different. So it's interesting. That's an interesting aspect. So that pretty much catches us up to the evening of August 8th, 1989. And Jeff Wheatcraft and some other investigators were kind of doubtful that the activity was as intense as she was claiming it was. And that was when Jeff decided to go into the attic, because Jeff is Mr. Skeptic. And when he did, the atmosphere in the house just kind of changed instantly. And it kind of started when they entered this the like bathroom. And the moment Jeff stepped into the attic, he felt like he was being watched, and he kept like looking behind him. And this attic is tiny. It's no more than 12 by 13 feet or so. It's basically empty with the exception, like there's loose floorboards. There's like a box or a crate, a small crate in one corner. So he starts to snap some pictures. And he went back down to the attic door, and he was letting everybody know, like, you know, what he was feeling and such. And Larry Brooks, who was Dr. Barry Taff's friend, started suggesting that he take some pictures behind him. And when he snapped the third picture, the camera flew out of his hand and he let out a scream. After he came down, Barry accompanied him back up to find the camera. And in one corner, they found the lens, which had been separated from the camera. And in the other corner, in that old crate, they found the rest of the camera, like face down. So that's creepy. The camera hadn't been damaged, but it looked like it had, the parts had actually been neatly placed down, which is interesting.
Which again is common in poltergeist cases. You know, things sort of flying but coming to a somewhat settled rest. Mm-hmm. So and of course, and the camera wasn't working properly. Isn't that again the old? Mm-hmm. Every time we tried to take a picture, nothing worked. But then when we left the attic, the camera started working properly again, right?
Yeah. So every time Barry Conrad would bring up like a video camera, it would fail. Right. But when he came back down, he tested this, worked fine, no problem. Right. Like practically the instant he took it out of the attic, it would work properly again. So.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Poltergeist bingo.
Yep. Poltergeist bingo. There was a nauseating smell that kind of moved into the attic. It was the stench of decaying matter. There's another bingo for you.
There's another bingo. I'm telling you, this thing, it checks all the boxes.
It's the greatest hits, man. It is the greatest hits. It is, the Eagles' greatest hits, 74 to 76, man, or whatever that one was. But now
you know what the skeptic will say, Rob.
What?
Well, that clearly these people were experts. Jackie knew everything about poltergeists and was simply picking and choosing from the grab bag of phenomenon. And what I will say to that is maybe Barry Taff, maybe Barry Conrad knew about this stuff, but I don't think Jackie did. I think what Jackie goes through, I think she's just a regular Joe or Jackie, as it were. And I don't think she knew about the stuff. She's not like you and I. See, you and I, again, God forbid there's ever a poltergeist in any house we ever live in. No one's going to listen to that shit for 1 second. Yeah. We know a little too much.
Just we're insiders. It's like we're like, we would be accused of the insider trading of the paranormal world. We know exactly what goes on. We know what happens. So Larry Brooks handed Barry kind of battery packs for the failing cameras, but they still just wouldn't function every time that he did. They shot a few more photographs before leaving the attic, but as Jeff was about to go down, he started to act a little weird. His eyes were kind of like really wide in his sockets, and he was turning a little pale, and he suddenly braced himself on the rafters and he proclaimed, "It's behind me." And Barry is up there. He's looking around. He doesn't see anything. So Jeff got down as quickly as he could and described to everyone the sensation of a cold, bony hand trying to push him down the hole as he was descending. So, and he doesn't describe this as like, oh, it's like a human hand, but like a really, like someone who, has a very like thin, frail hand, or like doesn't have a lot of meat on their bones. He literally says it felt like it was like a skeletal hand pushing him down.
And pushing him down really hard too.
Yes. Like it would pushed him so hard in the back that it required a visit to the chiropractor, who stated that he had internal bruising on his back, and it made him he was unable to work for several weeks after that, according to him.
So this is the first attack. This is the first physical attack, right?
Right.
And it's an attack on Jeff.
Yes.
And it's not the last one we're going to hear about.
No. Poor Jeff in this case, or I don't know. Maybe Jeff had it coming to him. I don't really know.
Jeff should have taken the hint and recused himself from this case.
For a while. So in the attic, after they had gotten out of there, they started to hear these like loud bangs. It sounded like footsteps moving back and forth. And they were actually able to capture this on video, and we're going to include a portion of the audio here right now.
A few moments after Jeff and Barry left the attic, loud pounding noises began to emanate from the ceiling.
And the whole feeling of the room just changed. It went from all of a sudden from being just an interview to something that was actually happening. I mean, this was actually happening and nobody could explain it.
What happened? It's something grabbed that out of my hand. I'm not kidding. Somebody grabbed the whole thing out of my hand.
Just now.
Now. It grabbed the whole thing out of my hand.
Run.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hear it? Hear it?
He's walking back and forth up there.
It is walking, definitely.
Yes.
Quiet, everyone. Shh, quiet.
There has been noises in this room that come from right in the center, right here.
Go ahead and talk.
That's where the noises come from. Sometimes there's a noise like a deep hum, and it's come from right here in midair. It's come from right in the center.
So you've heard noises in this room?
Oh yeah, deep humming. It comes from right here, right in the center of the room.
Jeff, he kind of peeked back into the attic briefly to see, and he sees these like kind of like three flashes of light that appear out of nowhere. And he could see this huge black mass that was moving about the attic. It was as big as three men standing together, is what he claimed. Around this time, Al Hernandez, who was in the room with the kids watching over them, heard a disembodied voice that night. In the tone of an evil old man, it stated, quote, "Tell them to get the fuck out of there." Yeah. So.
Well, that just sounds like me on a normal night.
Rich Adam, know how he will act if he becomes an angry spirit. Here we go.
That's right. It'll be pretty much like I acted when I was alive, telling those kids to get the fuck out of here.
That's it.
Which, by the way, Poltergeist Bingo, the disembodied voice, the angry disembodied voice. So, and
Al was the only one that heard it. Nobody else heard it. But it was it's the stuff piled on for this on this particular night, and the activity continued throughout the home. There were moments when lights cut out as they were filming, and Jackie at one point just, like, slipped into this kind of like trance-like state, claiming that the ghost didn't want them there. Like, she was picking up on these vibes. And at the end of a long night, the entire team kind of just experienced just a plethora. They filled up their bingo cards, in other words.
Right. Yeah, they sure did. Yeah. Unlike, I mean, this is the first night of the investigation, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of uncharacteristic, because most of the time they don't experience anything when they go to investigate it the first night. But like this thing is literally throwing the kitchen sink at them. They are literally throwing bingo cards left and right at these people. It's just everything.
And you know, you can't win with these things because if nothing happens, then it's like, oh yeah, it's like all those ghost investigation shows where nothing ever happens. Isn't that convenient? Oh boy. Yeah. But on the other hand, if too much happens, now that sounds fake. You know, it's like, well, you couldn't possibly have this much stuff going on the very first night you investigate, but maybe you do, you know, maybe you do. They got a lot, which I can understand is what brings them back. Cause it's like, oh my God, we got the mother lode here. I mean, we're going to prove everything with this one case. Just, you know, bring in the cameras, bring in the recording devices, and let's just lock it all down.
And the thing is like, this isn't a small group of people. There's like 9 or 10 of them there that night with like everybody included. It's a lot of people there. The kids and the
neighbors and the babysitter and everything. Yeah, there's a lot of people there.
Yeah, the kids don't. One thing that's surprising, the kids don't really experience a lot, or if they do, like it doesn't register for them for some reason. It's they
don't seem to be a part of this.
Right. Not so much the target, but before they headed home after they wrapped up the investigation, Barry Conrad and Jeff Wheatcraft, they took their film to Allen's Custom Photo in Hollywood and dropped it in the 24-hour slot.
Just so you know, I checked out. I looked up Allen's Custom Photo in Hollywood.
Did you?
Could not find it.
Okay.
Couldn't find it. Now, that doesn't mean it never existed. This story goes back 30 years. There could very well have been an Allen's Custom Photo in Hollywood. I did a deep 90-second search on Google and could not find it. So I was upset because if it did exist, you know, I would have gone there.
Yeah, I know you would have. Rich is putting in the work here, folks. He's he's the on-site guy. That's why I have him on for these like California stories, because like it seems like I've been there.
this one is a lot of I was going to, but you know, it's like, oh, I would have gone down to San Pedro, but it turns out the place wasn't there. And why would I just go down and take a picture of an empty lot? And then, oh yeah, I would have gone into Hollywood, but I couldn't find Allen's Custom Photo, so I didn't. But rest assured, folks, I've been to San Pedro and Hollywood, and I would have happily gone back to either one of them if I thought there was something to photograph.
Yep, absolutely. So they sealed it in an envelope. They put it in this 24-hour drop slot. The next day, the employees of Allen's Custom Photos found the roll of film several feet away from the drop slot in the middle of the floor. The envelope, which Jeff had his contact info and stuff, went missing. It was never found. Nobody knows what happened to it. And in one of the photos that Jeff shot behind him, there was kind of like an unusual light anomaly. It's nothing like you haven't seen on film before. Pretty tame stuff, but like later on in this case, there's going to be a lot of interesting light phenomenon that's captured. And there's one photo that is pretty infamous that I'll share with you because it'll be interesting to get your thoughts on it once we get to it. But
yeah, a lot of light stuff going on, which in a weird way, you know, does happen, and it does happen in hauntings, but I almost feel like this is not as common in poltergeist cases, just like weird light starting around. I don't know what your take on that is, but that feels like it's more associated with UFOs. The weird
exactly. And
lights.
There are moments where Barry calls them UFOs in the book because they do kind of document it outside the home at times. But light orbs like this aren't like like when you see them on camera and stuff these days, it's like usually like fast moving, like they could be mistaken for a bug or something like that, moving on a like straight line or something like that, which you get some of that. But like there are light balls in this thing that are more suggestive of like, like the ghost lights or like the orbs that say were experienced on Skinwalker Ranch and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
mhm.
This got a little skinwalkery.
Yeah, a little bit. So there was one final anomalous incident that night. So Jeff decided to crash on Barry's couch. It was like, I want to say it was like 4:30 in the morning by the time that they had wrapped up their investigation. And Jeff awoke at like 6 a.m, claiming to see an old man in Barry's apartment. So that's kind of a little foreshadowing for stuff that's going to happen later on. But throughout the month of August, phone calls from Jackie would become a regular thing for Barry. Like Barry was the contact, and Barry was the guy that most often went out and would go to Jackie's house to document things. Jeff kind of avoided the place for a while, seeing as how he, was kind of the target of a lot of the intense stuff. But throughout the month of August, she reported footsteps in the attic, mysterious shadows floating on the ceiling. She saw globes and flashes of light, muffled conversations between men and women, a man-like shadow that would float across the ceiling while the children slept. Quote, "It was like someone in a black, shiny raincoat. This thing would float slowly through the room and then hover over the daybed before disappearing into my ceiling." End quote. That right there is, it doesn't feel totally like ghost apparition-y. It kind of has, with some of the stuff that I'm reading lately, it kind of feels a little more
shadow people.
Yeah. It seems shadow person like.
Yes.
There's one case that I'm reading about right now it's going to be a future episode in which there's a lot of like UFO activity centered around a family, kind of like a poltergeist case. And in the home, they see apparitions of like men kind of wearing what you would think of as spacesuits. They also see like shadowy figures. So like there's some parallels here I'm seeing in some of what she's experiencing. So yeah, it seems like there's like phenomenon converging all at once in this like one freaking house, which is interesting. Yeah. During one trip, a friend of Barry's, a guy named Brian Moore, accompanied him to the house. He was a skeptic, and he was kind of anxious to experience something. So around 11:30 p.m., Brian went into the kitchen with Jackie's 3-year-old son to help him get some ice cream. Before long, he rushed back into the living room, claimed that he had heard a heavy sigh. And shortly after, the sounds of pebbles hitting their hot water heater could be heard. And their hot water heater was in the laundry room. So 15 minutes after that, Brian left and he had enough. And they had all witnessed kind of some more flashes of bright white light that were so bright they kind of illuminated the entire room. So again, that's interesting because that seems UFO-y.
It does. And it's, just weird element after weird detail. What was the 3-year-old doing up at 11:30? That's my question.
Yeah.
What's a 3-year-old doing having ice cream at 11:30 at night? Again, I'm not saying anything about Jackie's parenting, but come on.
As you can see, the father, Richard Haddam, has shown up in the episode, and he is now questioning parenting techniques. I get it. I
think the heavy sigh they heard was me judging her parenting.
That's it right there, folks. We figured it out. This sigh, literally the ghost saying, "This is so cringe. Why is your kid up at 11:30 at night? Come on."
There's a lot going on in that house. Let me tell you.
There is judgmental ghosts. Very judgmental.
I'm going to call out the pebbles because this is the second time we've heard about the sound of pebbles hitting things. Yeah. And I will direct you to a book by S.D. Tucker called Blythe Spirits, which is all about the poltergeist phenomenon and connecting it to traditional trickster folklore, and how they seem to overlap in a lot of ways. And the throwing of stones is central. And I didn't know that the throwing of stones and the stacking of stones, the appearance of stones, were so prevalent in poltergeist cases, but apparently they are. So if you want a really interesting, almost literary look at the poltergeist, definitely check out Blythe Spirits by S.D. Tucker.
Well,
We've got a few other poltergeist books that I'll recommend before the episode's over for your Halloween reading.
Excellent. It's also interesting that, rocks and stones are kind of affiliated with Bigfoot too. So like, you got your parallels there.
That's right.
Yeah.
The throwing of stones. I think we're on to, I think the only people who don't throw stones are the aliens. They don't throw stones, do they?
Yeah, that's true. They do all other sorts of weird stuff, but they do not throw rocks, which is great. So there's the trip to the grocery store that Jackie and Susan had made, and when they returned to the house, they found everything in shambles. Like it looked like somebody had gone through the place. And the moment that Susan walked into the kitchen, the refrigerator door slammed open, causing some of the magnetic letters on the door to fall on the floor. And two of the letters that dropped nearby spelled out G-O, as in go, as in get the hell out of this place. Yeah.
Yeah, but she did 4 other letters spelled out stay. So what are you gonna do?
Right. The same word was later scratched on the wall beneath the trapdoor to the attic.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I guess the message is clear. Okay. So the words scratched onto the wall, very poltergeisty. The refrigerator letters spelling out a message, very not poltergeisty. I have actually not encountered that one a lot. Have you, Rob?
No, not really.
It seems obvious. It seems like the go-to if you're a poltergeist. It's like, oh, the letters are right here. I don't even have to go to the effort of scratching something into a wall. I can just arrange these letters. I don't hear about it a lot. This is one of the only ones.
Yeah. It's not common. So, great. It's great when we can give them the tools to tell us to go fuck off. It's fantastic.
I can just picture your listeners now, like madly scraping the letters off their refrigerators at this point, throwing them in the garbage. So as not to walk. You don't want to walk in and see, get the fuck out written in multicolored letters. Now, what about those little magnetic where it's the entire word and you do the little funny sentences? Now, has anyone ever experienced that?
No, but I think there needs to be experiments done. I think people need to go and get some words, put them on your refrigerator, give them the space and open it up to them to communicate with you and share your messages with us. I think we would be absolutely delighted. Just tweet them out to us. You're at Richard Haddam. I am at your UFO guy. Just tweet them to us. It would make our day. We'd love to see it.
There are people out there who are doing EVP experiments all the time. That there's listeners doing all kinds of their own occult explorations. Please put the letters out, put the little magnetic things out, and while you're doing your Ouija board or whatever it is you do to draw the spirits to you, encourage them to use those tools to express themselves, and then please let us know your results. And I'm serious. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do it up, get in contact with us. On subsequent visits, the team would observe this strange amber liquid that would drip out of the cabinets. Bob Moss.
I tell you,
Yeah.
there's some amber liquid in my cabinets just waiting for me to finish this podcast.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure they're upset that they have not been consumed at this point. But
That's right. I'm going to collect some samples.
Look, folks, if the next time you're going to have, your nightcap or something like that, don't say that, you just need a drink. Just say you're going to collect some samples and you're going to test them. There you go.
I'm testing this amber substance that has appeared. It's a flight of amber substances, and I'm going to compare them and see which one I like the best.
And you know what, folks? If you don't have the receipt, it just appeared in that cabinet.
That's right. What are you going to do?
Right. You got to test it. If it appears, you got to test it. So Bob Moss, he's a friend of Barry's. He accompanied him on this particular trip. He claimed to hear kind of a heavy sigh before Jackie was pushed by some kind of unseen entity. So they discover a little bit later. They discover.
I'm doing the sigh just a bit.
Yeah. Yes, we have the eternally judgy ghost judging her parenting skills. Not really happy with her, pushing her around. Yep, there it is. Rich is totally gathered.
My wife is very familiar with this heavy sigh. She'll tell you. Oh, I'm getting the heavy sigh. I'm like, yeah, maybe you are getting the heavy sigh.
Getting the heavy sigh. So they discovered this liquid inside one of the cabinets. It's dripping down. It's a strange looking liquid that they actually got on camera. And I think they had seen it on the first night that they were there. I'm not really sure, but it was on a couple of successive trips that they did see it. They collected this stuff in a baggie, had it tested, and determined that it was human blood plasma from a man and had high concentrations of copper and iodine.
Let me refer to my notes. I made a notation here. Oh, fuck. It's blood plasma leaking out of the... Oh, this is problematic. There's no bingo card that I have that says human blood plasma from a man with a high concentration of copper and iodine, which I don't even know what that indicates. Like, what does that mean?
I don't
Someone's
either.
got a lot of... Oh, we got to find out. If there's a hematologist in the audience. Is there a hematologist in the house?
Yeah. If there is, please get at us. If you want the email version, ourstrangeskies@gmail.com. Just if you have a response for what that could mean, it'd be great to know. If you have a response for why this would be leaking out of a cabinet in someone's home when there's no dead bodies found, I'd be curious to know, because it's plasma. It's plasma.
Human blood plasma.
Yes.
I mean, that might be the most startling thing in the entire case.
No,
they got it. I mean, they got it in a baggie.
Yes. No, this is the most startling thing ever. Okay. On multiple occasions, Chrissy Zivkovich or Zivkovich, it's a Russian name. I'm terrible at it. But she had witnessed the mattress of Jackie's daybed fall through the springs that were attached to the frame and onto the floor.
Yeah, now you got to explain this. I don't know what's happening when that you say that to me. What is happening? It's the mattress is somehow falling through the box spring.
Yes.
What is happening here?
Right. It's literally falling through the springs onto the floor.
Or is it? Wait a second. Is it the box spring, or is it just a netting of spring that is supporting the mattress?
It could be that. But either way, like,
so this is just moving. It's matter through matter. Is that what we're talking about?
I think that's what they're getting at, because like, there's no way that could happen. Because like when you completely,
I literally just heavy sighed.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm sorry. Can we just get Jackie Hernandez on the phone? Maybe we're missing that one element that we need. Can we just call her and ask her about this case?
We should. We really should.
Has anyone looked her up recently? Do we know where she is now? Has anyone?
Don't know. I honestly don't know. I do think she's still living. I think she's still alive. I don't know. She's still living out in California.
That living. I would look up Jackie Hernandez in the phone book, but in Southern California, there's going to be more than one.
Right. Yeah, there's going to be a lot. And I don't know if she got married since then and has a new last name or anything like that. But yeah, it's
Jackie Hernandez Hatton. Rob, let me tell you, here she is. Come on, Jackie. Let me sigh for you.
Oh, there it is. There it is. On August 28th, Jackie placed a frantic phone call to Barry claiming that she had captured photographs of light forms dancing across the ceiling of the kitchen. The photographs look kind of like small cloud formation, like a really tiny cloud formation on the ceiling. I'll see if I can find it for you, because I did.
Oh my God! Yeah, if you've got it.
Yeah, I got the pictures.
Okay, well,
it's not impressive, I know, but it looks weird because it's against the ceiling there.
Well, okay. I mean, she took a picture, so that, more power to her. It does just look like a reflection of a light on the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
So these pictures are hard to get. It's hard to, it's hard for this phenomenon to translate onto, film. And this was a regular film camera because this was like 1989. So this was not an iPhone. But you do see, it looks like a little light, on the ceiling. Like if there was a piece of glass, that's kind of what it looks like. All right.
Yep. So Chrissy,
this falls into the category of, if you were going to fake it, you'd do a better job than this.
Okay,
so it must be real.
Yes. But it is a step up from the Gulf Breeze photos, I would say. It's a little bit better. Granted, it's not a UFO, but it's still.
Okay. All right. All right.
This is what Chrissy Zivkovich, who was there that night, said when she saw them. Quote, "They were very bright and luminous, and they would jiggle, split apart, and come back together. All the while they were floating on the ceiling. All the blinds in the kitchen were shut, so it wasn't a reflection created from the outside sunlight. They would move around a little bit, break apart, and then come back together. All of this lasted about 15 minutes, and suddenly the balls of light dissipated into one little ball and then vanished." End quote. So, Darlene, again, one of Jackie's friends, she often would babysit her kids. And she had gone on a date that night. And before she was set to retire for the night, she decided to go to the bathroom. And looking to pass through the children's bedroom, a voice stopped her dead in her tracks. "Don't come in here," is what it said.
Hold on, let me refer to my notes. I believe I put a notation. The words "oh fuck."
There it is. There it is, folks. There it is.
Back again.
Quote, "And so I said, okay." And trembling, I backed away from the doorway to the couch and lay there and closed my eyes. I was afraid I might see something, but I did not. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I do know that no one besides those sleeping kids was in that room, and none of them could have spoken out in a gruff tone of voice. End quote. Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's problematic. It's in there with the kids.
It is.
I told her to get out, and she did. What kind of?
Yes.
I bet she didn't get a tip that night.
Don't come in here.
If you've got a babysitter, and babysitter goes in the room with the kids, and a male voice says, "Get out! Don't come in here." You go in there. You turn on the lights. You find out what the hell's going on.
So my question is,
it's more parenting advice from me.
It is more parenting advice, but like, do you think that kind of reaction is unusual then? Like, in that is she picking up on something that something else? Like, because if it was,
knew, I mean, she knew it was haunted. Like, she knew the house was haunted, right?
I assume so. I'm pretty sure. But
Because if you don't, then you're like, wait, what the hell was that? But if you know the house is haunted and you just hear this voice go, don't come in here, then you go, oh, that's probably the ghost.
Okay.
Not
Yeah, that's fair.
some creepy guy who got into the room.
Fair point.
It's some creepy dead guy who got in the room.
It's some creepy dead guy, basically a zombie, has gotten into the children's room, and you are letting them be the meal for the zombie. Rich, could you rate this babysitting performance on a size scale for me, please?
There you go.
Thank you. There it is. As you can tell, very disappointed. But everything culminated in early September, leading to a handful of violent events, experienced by Jackie and Jeff Wheatcraft. Jeff is going to re-enter the story here. On September 1st, Jackie placed a call to Barry Conrad. The entity supposedly had tried to kill her that night. She awoke early that morning feeling a heavy pressure on her, and she was unable to breathe. Quote, I remember trying to break free of whatever it was, and one of the kids moved beside me. I remember thinking, I've got to do it for them, for the children, because the thought of dying was going through my mind at that point. And Barry Conrad describes what Jackie's experiencing as a struggle of wills, which she ultimately is able to free herself of.
Yeah, this sounds like an old hag sort of incident where only real, if I may, where something, there's pressure on the body, it's hard to breathe, it feels like there's an entity there. So yeah, that's one of the more puzzling parts about the case, because typically I would just go, well, this is that hypnagogic sort of half sleep thing that people experience, which I have also experienced a mild case of once. But this one sounds like, no, coupled with everything else that's going on, maybe it really was associated with the greater phenomenon, and it was an actual conscious entity trying to attack her.
All right. 3 nights later, on the evening of September 4th, Barry was hard at work completing an editing job for a client when his phone rang. 10:45 p.m., Jackie called, describing a flurry of activity, which included moans coming from the attic, doors slamming, and children's toys being levitated off the ground. So bingo. She basically, who's got the bingo? Who's got it? Yeah, just hit me up. But she kind of pleaded with Barry to come over, and he did. So he was accompanied by his friend Gary Bain. He was a longtime friend and colleague, and he brought Jeff Wheatcraft with him. Susan Castaneda was there. She had come over too, and after conducting an interview with Jackie, Jeff and Gary agreed to go up into the attic. It was now about 12:49, and Jeff was feeling uneasy. And as they began their ascent, they detected the odor of rotting organic matter again. Still, they went into the attic, though everyone was like on edge at this point. Like there was like a tension in the air, which is interesting because we just released a few weeks ago the episode entitled The UFO Window, which is kind of like a case that is very similar to the Skinwalker Ranch case. It's one of the best episodes we've ever done. And if you haven't listened to it, you need to go listen to it, folks, because it's really great. But one of the things that drives the people off the property is this like inherent feeling of tension, because there was like this kind of come to Jesus moment with these aliens. So it's a come to aliens moment in which they like one of the people that lives there meets with the aliens, and they're like, all right, look, we can sort out a more equitable arrangement for you living here. We put you through enough and all this kind of stuff. So we've got a lot of tension in the air as they're going up into the attic. And down below, as Jeff and Gary are up there, there's like activity that's starting to pick up. There's like a small tadpole shaped amber light that flew near some blue curtains, and everybody's gathered in the laundry room, which included Barry, Jackie, and Susan. They started to feel like they were being just watched. And then all three of them heard very loud snaps, as if someone was snapping their fingers directly in their ears. And they started to call up to the attic, telling them to get out of there. Like, they felt that this was a signal that something bad's going to happen. So all of a sudden, they hear a low groan coming from the attic. Amid cries and shouts of "get out of there," Gary turned to Jeff and asked him if he was okay. Jeff's flashlight had mysteriously gone out. He didn't know what happened to it, and this forced Gary to use the camera that he had, and he started to snap some pictures. And he heard Jeff say, "There's something around my neck." Now, I'm going to throw in the most infamous photo of this moment in the chat for you, because I'm sure it's going to look very familiar to you. This is, I'll throw in both of them. This is the first one. And this is the first photograph that Gary took of him. Just like describe it for everybody, because it's bone chilling to look at.
It's so odd because it's just the way his head. So it's a full body shot of this guy sort of leaning. Okay, there's support beams that are vertical, and then ones that are sort of tilted at like a 45-degree angle, maybe a little less, maybe a 40-degree angle. So sort of at a diagonal, if you will. And it appears that he has stepped sort of in between. So he's sort of standing in this V of two pieces of wood, one straight up and down, one leaning out. He's got a foot on either side, and his head is pressed up against the sloped angle of the attic roof. And he's got sort of one hand maybe sort of around the diagonal piece of wood, kind of, supporting him, but his head is tilted to the side, and he almost has like a questioning look on his face. And so what is it we're supposed to be seeing here? What do we think is happening now?
Gary didn't know. He shot another photograph of Jeff. And you can kind of see a little more clearly in this photograph what's happening.
You definitely see the date on the photograph, 8994, which, by the way, is almost exactly 33 years ago to the day that we're recording this.
Yes, absolutely. It's one day off.
Yeah. Okay. Now this picture is much closer. Now, here's what's odd. Now we're closer, and we're seeing him now. It looks like he's not straddling that diagonal piece of wood, but he's standing next to it with both of his hands on it, just sort of almost like, not that he's leaning against it, but he's just sort of steadying himself. And his head, his chin is sort of tilted down toward his chest. And there's just a little line up above his ear going to the another crossbeam in the attic. And now here's what we come to understand from this photo when we learn more of the context is that he feels something around his throat. It feels like a piece of string or twine or light rope. And that it was something was trying to strangle him or quote unquote hang him. Now here's the thing, Rob. When you look at that picture, you see a little line going up, but you don't see anything around the crossbeam. It's not like you see a string wrapped around it or a rope wrapped around it. It's just like a little something. Like, I don't even know if it's a string. It's just something behind his head that seems to go straight up to that piece of wood, and then it disappears when it hits the edge of the wood. So it's really hard for me to understand what's happening right now.
Yeah.
My feeling is that if you feel something around your neck, your hands are at your neck. But his hands are not at his neck. Now, I don't know if he's steadying himself, if he's off balance. What do you think? What do you make of these pictures?
We're going to get into that right now. So Gary turned and he ran to Jeff. He's loudly crunching over these loose floorboards, desperate to get to him. And Jeff he yells out, "It puts something around my neck." As Jeff, he eventually gets him down. So this is his quote. This is Jeff's quote. "All of a sudden, I have this thing around my neck and it's pulling me up and it hooks me on something. Gary had to take me off. I was hanging there and it was pulling, and I could feel something pulling on my ankles. Then Gary says, 'Raise up,' and I couldn't rise up. I couldn't rise up at all. It just kept pulling. The photos that Gary took, you could see the cord wrapped around his neck. It's wrapped around a nail right above him. And the way that Gary explains it, he had to bend the nail down in order to get him off of it because of the way that the cord was wrapped around his neck.
So suddenly there was a cord wrapped around his neck. It does look, if you look at the pictures, the first one and then the second one, if that's the order in which they're taken, it looks like he was stepping over that. He was like walking through the attic, stepping over a diagonal piece of, wood, and then felt something and then stepped back, like brought his leg back and was sort of steadying himself. I guess maybe it makes sense if you felt something that was pulling you up, you don't want to fall and you're afraid of losing your balance, which you don't want to do. So you're sort of steadying yourself. Right. So maybe that's what we're seeing here.
I think the most telling thing about it is the placement of the head, because the placement of the head does not look normal for somebody who would be making those kind of movements. To me, they wouldn't be up like that, because you can look and it looks like his neck is kind of being pulled up a little bit if you look at them. And
so the first picture you sent is the first picture chronologically that was taken.
Yep.
Okay. So all right. It's from a lower angle. So then Gary went back up into the attic, like, wait, what's going on? And then he unhooked him. Okay. But all of this just sort of happened, like out of nowhere.
Yes,
it was just like
out of nowhere.
Suddenly there's something around my neck and it's a rattle thing and it's just, there it is.
Yeah. This is another quote from Jeff. "It was so quiet up there. It was so quiet, but it was sneaking around us. It must have been because I felt that there was nothing there at first. We were ready to come down. Gary was going and I was about to come down, and that's when he feels that thing around his neck." So basically when he's kind of grasping the board and he has his leg a little bit over one of them, he's in the motion of trying to get over it to get back to the entrance. And that was when he felt it.
It's like something, it's like if you get caught on something, you stop moving forward, you step back so that you don't, Okay.
I think what always gives me pause with those photographs is just the placement of his head, because in the motions that he's that you assume that he's trying to do in that first photograph, when he's trying to get down, his head shouldn't be that high. His head should kind of be focused on where he's going, but it's not.
Right. You're in an attic. You're more likely to be sort of hunched over and sort of ducking down a little bit, not stretched up with your head at a weird angle up against the sloped roof of the attic. Yeah. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So these two photographs are infamous. It's probably the most infamous thing about this case, and has probably has a greater life beyond it, is these two photographs. And it was during all this excitement after Jeff and Gary get out of the attic, and as Jeff is coming down, he still has the line attached to his neck. I'll see if I can find the picture of that too. And they later documented a red mark around his neck too. So it had done enough to leave an impression.
So that's the loopy part that was over the nail.
Yep.
And then, so he's sort of holding it up, but it's not still around his neck.
I think it is still over his neck. He's still kind of like wearing it around his neck right now.
Oh, so there's going behind his head. I am okay. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, it's, it's a guy with this cord around his neck, and he's sort of pointing to the looped area. Right. Yeah, very weird.
It's very weird. So is like the knot. The knot looks very weird in that. And there's a reason that I say that. We'll get into it eventually. That may have a connection to some of the stuff that goes on, but
right.
Yeah, during all of this, like everybody's frantic. There was this moment where Barry Conrad was holding a camera, and I think it was like Susan and somebody else saw this like light, light phenomenon kind of go into Barry, and he started to get like really faint and really like lightheaded and stuff, and like he almost fell down. They had to get the camera from him. And that's when everybody decided to move out of the house. The cord around Jeff's neck was apparently made of thin clothesline that was pliable and flexible and may have had like a vinyl coating on it. And
almost like a wire, almost in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I think I know what they're talking about.
Yep. So Jackie started to pull her kids out of the house, and she had put her daughter Samantha outside in kind of like a bassinet or something, and she decided that she was going to go say with Susan. So as she placed her outside, totally fine, no problem. As they were coming back through again, they noticed this kind of red smudge on her forehead.
Was it plasma?
They said it kind of looked like blood. I'll see if I can. I think I took because it was in.
Did it
book.
have a high level of copper and iodine in it?
Yeah, right. Not that I'm aware of, but it just mysteriously appeared on her. Here we go.
Yeah, on her newborn daughter's forehead. When blood mysteriously appears on your newborn infant, it's time
to get the hell out.
I think you wrap things up.
Yeah. So there is the photograph of that.
Let me see. Oh, that doesn't look too bad.
Right.
Well,
I mean, it's not
that
like
could be anything.
Well, they wiped it off. That was kind of Jackie's breaking point. But following the events that took place on the night of September 4th, like the nature and focus of the investigation changed from one of just like blank documentation, document everything, to exploration, trying to get to the bottom of this, searching for answers. And 3 days later, on the 7th, they consulted with a psychic down the street. Her name was Yolanda. And Yolanda spewed some crap about ancient Indian burial grounds, which is bullshit, folks. Anybody who says ancient Indian burial grounds, fuck off. Okay, that's a bullshit stereotype that was kind of made famous by the Amityville case. Like that's really where it set off. So like if ancient Indian burial grounds are in your repertoire, get them out, because it's bullshit. But she kind of said that there were multiple spirits responsible for the haunting. She didn't really provide a lot of good information because, again, she was spewing kind of BS. So they ultimately decided to do a Ouija board session on their own.
Now, this is a terrible idea. I don't think in this house, this is gasoline on a fire, bringing in a Ouija board. Right. With this place, I don't even think you need a Ouija board. Can't you just sit down anywhere in the house and start asking questions?
Yeah, probably. Get your your magnets on the fridge and have them do it like that. But this is
It's a bad idea.
September 24th at 4:20 in the morning, which seems like a joke to me. I'm just saying 4:20 in the morning is a bit much. But as they started to communicate, they started to hear thumps above them. They started hearing whistling sounds. They heard movement in one room. And several times the planchette just like flew off the board. And when they asked for the entity's name,
Rob, even the planchette didn't want to be there.
Yeah, the planchette was like, "What are you still doing here? Get the hell out of this house."
Planchette's like, "I'm out of here. You guys, good luck."
Yeah. And I mean, like, they're doing this session like weeks later after the events had happened. So still, it's like, okay, well, we're going to fully, go hawk on this thing and just do everything. So when asked what the spirit's name was, it kept replying with the letters SME. And these same letters would just come up multiple times. They learned that there were 5 spirits causing the haunting. And when asked if the spirit was sad, it responded, yes, SME. When asked how old the spirit was, a loud, distant cry was heard coming from the back of the house. 5,040 was the response.
Oh, boy. That's pretty old. That's a long time to be in San Pedro.
It is. It's a very, very long time. So after this, Jackie temporarily reconciled with Al, and they moved to the town of Weldon, which is 300 miles north of San Pedro, in October of 1989. And everything
directly north.
Yes, pretty much directly.
It's like, yeah, just directly north. And I think, was it? So it was October of 89. Okay, so the next thing that happened was in 1990. Okay, got it.
Yep. So everything was peaceful for months. And I wrote that down wrong. Damn it. Okay. Until March of 1990, when the activity started up again. There was one afternoon after, driving in from Los Angeles, Al, who had been asleep in the afternoon, he just woke up and he was in this like really relaxed state, and he meandered outside to their storage shed behind the trailer. And the storage shed is going to become like the attic now. It is the central kind of place which the spirits seem to be coming from. So Jackie looked out the window at him and watched her husband just staring blankly through the shed door. And he staggered back to the house shortly after. And this is where the domestic violence comes into play. Al stood in the living room just looking at Jackie, and she was terrified. And that was when she saw a plume of gray smoke fly into the back of Al's head. And that was when he became very aggressive. She claimed like a wild animal. He hit Jackie across the face. The two struggled for a period of time before Al collapsed on the floor, the puff of smoke leaving the way it had entered. A penetrating cold entered the room, signaling that the entity was back. And later that day, she went to retrieve a pair of sandals from the back closet. She found the letters A-L scratched into the bedroom closet.
Did that stand for Astonishing Legends?
It should. We're giving them free plugs. I mean, those guys are struggling. Let's give them a plug. They need all the help they can get these days. I'm sure of it.
How did the ghost know way before that podcast even was happening to Astonishing Al was making an appearance? That's weird.
Astonishing Al made an appearance in that attic in San Pedro, and then it made another appearance, just making his presence known in this case. So Astonishing Al gets around. He totally gets around.
I guess so. And then flies into people's heads and makes them attack people. So yeah, I don't know what that's about, but
I think they need to talk to him.
That's Scott and Forrest's problem.
Yeah, that is. Can you give me a psi rating for how well they've done in this case, making sure that Al doesn't attack people and like making sure that, Al makes people feel safe and is a good mascot for the show? There it is. There it is, folks.
My highest rating. or lowest if you look at it that way.
Yes. A few days later, after Jackie had gone into town for groceries, Carissa, the daughter of Jim and Janice Silcott, they were neighbors and friends, were watching her children when she heard pounding sounds coming from the children's bedroom. They grew more and more intense, sounding as if the entire house would come crashing down. The pounding ceased when she peered into the bedroom. Scratching sounds in the storage shed would become a nightly ritual. Often when this was occurring, the chirp of crickets would just die down, kind of like you've got the Oz effect going on here, which is interesting to me. But
yeah. Now the people listening, your listeners, may not be familiar with this idea that, I mean, okay, so we this was the San Pedro Haunting, and now it's the Weldon Haunting. Well, what's going on? Was the house haunted or the people haunted? Because now it seems like the people move, and where the place they move to is now haunted. This does happen. I mean, you've heard of this. I've heard of this. It's not super common, but it's not unheard of.
Yeah. So this will come up in another Ouija board session because there was more than one. They did more than one. And one of them was going to yield some interesting answers. So there was one day when two boys were passing by the storage shed on their way home from school. And there was this wind that suddenly picked up and died back down. And passing the front of the storage shed, the heavy door mysteriously pushed open as if by a strong force. And what sounded like bags of trash being moved came from the inside. Scared, the boys walked on. And in response, the shed started to shake violently as if it was caught in an earthquake. So,
okay. Yeah. Now, this is pretty weird. I'm dividing all this phenomenon into the unheard of and the heard of. The heard of stuff is the poltergeist bingo. So far, the things that I think that have happened in this case that are unheard of are the appearance of a cord around someone's neck out of nowhere that appears to be trying to hang him. And the gray smoke suddenly entering someone's head and making them turn violent, and then that smoke leaving and the person's aspect changing again. These are things I have never heard of in any other case ever. Okay. The other stuff, yeah, the shaking shed, not common, but okay. Scratching sounds, definitely. That's poltergeist bingo. So that's why this case sort of hovers in this weird area of what the fuck? Like, what do we make of this? So yeah, that's my division. I don't know if you've heard of things or other things are unfamiliar to you, but that's kind of where I fall on this case. There's a small handful of things that I've just never heard of before happening in any case ever.
Yeah. And this case is full of a few of them, few elements that just they don't make sense, and they don't really crop up often in other poltergeist cases. Yeah, this case is kind of one of a kind in many ways.
Yeah.
So Tina Lawler, who Jackie's 16-year-old daughter, which was a neighbor, would often babysit because Carissa didn't want to do it anymore, as you can imagine. Anybody wouldn't want to do. So on one occasion, while she was making out with her boyfriend in the hallway, they both started. Yeah, they both started to feel.
Yeah, they did.
They started to feel uneasy. And out of the corner of her left eye, she noticed a dark gray mist moving in front of the closet doors. On another occasion,
now this is something this is something that Susan does all the time. Right when things are getting hot, suddenly she sees a gray mist. Yeah, and that's it for the evening. So this is a heavy sigh. Okay,
can you do that heavy sigh for us, please? There it is. So On another occasion, because Tina experienced kind of stuff on her own quite a bit. She was hanging out with Jackie, and they both heard the toilet seat slam down hard, and there was a cold spot in the room. Just weird stuff. The most dramatic event occurred when Jackie and Tina were watching TV. They smelled smoke in the air, and rushing down the hallway, they found the bedspread in Samantha's room smoldering. 3 holes that resembled a face with long horns coming off of them. Like, there was something, like, they couldn't explain really well what caused the burns in this mattress. Yeah. I got a picture of that for you.
Oh, good. Oh, I was just gonna say that. I'm like, now this is something I'd like a picture of. I want to see the face with the horns. We'll see what it actually looks like. But again, things catching on fire, not unheard of. That's an easy poltergeist bingo.
Right. It does occur from time to time. There you go.
All right. Let me see if this is any good. Here we go. Ooh, not bad. Well, yeah, the little curl of smoke does give the impression. Yeah, it's like a little burn that sort of curls up. So it's like, oh yeah, those are kind of horn-like, or maybe those are eyes, and that's the thing. Yeah, okay, all right, those are weird burns. I give it my middleist rating.
Middleist, it's getting the middleist rating on the Richard Hatem scale of poltergeist phenomenon. So
right in the middle.
On April 1st, 1990, Jim and Janice were helping Jackie move a TV into the storage shed. And like, this thing is like large and bulky. It's huge. It's kind of like a TV that's inside of a stand. So it requires multiple people to lift it. And while they were all helping move this, Janice stopped and raised a trembling hand toward the screen, noting that there was a face in the corner of the screen, and it was the face of the old man that Jackie had seen. Like, in every way, like, they described it very similarly. Jim, at first, he saw it. He believed it was a smudge on the glass, but when he tried to wipe it away, this icy stare turned toward him. This old man was looking at him. Quote, "To me, it looked like an old man with real mean eyes. That was the thing that got me, was the eyes." The face was lifelike. It was articulate, and it moved. Quote, "The feeling I got..."
What's my note here? Oh, fuck. That's my note.
The feeling I got was that he didn't want to be discovered. And when we did, it made him angry. That's the kind of feeling you picked up from it. But when I saw those hateful eyes, it just made my skin crawl," recalled Janice.
Well, you know what? If you don't want to be discovered, don't show your face on the surface of a TV screen that people are moving into a different room. That's all I'm going to say. Just advice to a ghost.
Advice to a ghost. That's Richard Hatem's new podcast coming soon. Advice to a ghost.
I like that.
Yeah. Jackie was updating Barry, making phone calls weekly, and after the TV incident, poltergeist activity became a daily occurrence again. Jackie started to see bizarre skeletal shadow figures standing beside the shed very often. Light phenomenon was big inside the home, similar to the luminous clouds seen in the San Pedro home. These lights seemed to jiggle and ripple as they moved. On one occasion, the sofa would levitate and vibrate. While Jackie was on the phone with Barry, she heard growling coming from outside the trailer. And pulling back a curtain, she observed a pack of wild dogs growling at her trailer. This occurred after her dog, a Labrador named Samson, came in looking for food. While the pack of dogs growled at her trailer, Samson was levitated and thrown against a wall.
This is not okay.
No.
I do not cotton with the harassing of animals by a spirit. So now it's pissed me off.
Yep. Now we are angry. I'm going to show you a picture of the light phenomenon that she captured. Like, one of the best photos that she captured during this time. It hasn't been altered or anything.
I predict I will be unimpressed, but let's see. Let the three objects appear. Oh, hold on. In this final exposure, Jackie moved closer to the bald-shaped trio of lights.
Yeah.
They're bald-shaped. Puzzled. Alan's Custom Photo Lab in Hollywood makes another appearance. Alan. Oh, that's him. Oh, that must be the Alan. Oh, now I've got a last name. Alan Wedderts of Alan's Custom Photo Lab in Hollywood was puzzled by the fact that the mystery orbs did not project light onto the background wall as one might expect, considering how bright the objects appear. That's really interesting. I'm back in. Now, where was this? What room of the house, or what are we looking at here?
I think it was in the living room right next to a wall. Because there are other photographs, like there was a series of photographs that she took, and those have form to them. They have like a distinct shape. They have a distinct, like what looks like a texture to them, which is very smooth. This is here's another photograph of like the light phenomenon right before she snapped that one. It's from farther away, but you get the kind of idea of what it is.
Let's see. The three lights begin to. Yeah, you do. It's like it's shining onto the ground. It looks like, but not really upward as much to the wall. Okay, right. It's not bad. They coalesced into an amorphous configuration, still silent yet hovering above the floor. Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yeah. So Barry and Jeff would come down to investigate. And Jackie had taken to using the Ouija board very frequently to talk to the
Bad
spirits.
idea.
Yeah.
Bad idea. Big sigh.
It is what it is. You're going to get what you're going to get from it. So on this visit down, Jeff immediately saw like a shadow moving within the shed. And, he observed these kind of like purple flashes of light too, which is interesting. It's an interesting color. And they conducted a Ouija session, and the answers that would come forth were terrifying, just like absolutely terrifying. And again, this being identified itself as SME. They were 4 this time, not 5 spirits. And when asked where they were from, they replied, hell. And when asked if it was evil, it said yes.
Now, to my mind, this is a wasted follow-up question. If they say they're from hell, I think we can dispense with, are you evil?
Right. It's.
I think we got that.
Yeah.
I think we got it.
The being identified itself as a ghost. It was an angry ghost made angry by everyone at the table, which included Barry, Jeff, Jackie, and Tina. And during a lull of the session with their hands on the planchette, they received the message, I must grieve always. The temperature in the room dropped and the candles went out.
I'm with the ghost. I'm angry at these people too.
Yes. Things are going to get violent in this Ouija session, but the entity
things are going to get super violent up in this Weldon bitch trailer house.
Weldon bitch trailer house. It's a bitchin' trailer house. The entity claimed it was born in 1912, that it was trapped, that it had been for 60 years, that it was 60 years old and had died in Pedro Bay. When asked how they died, they claimed that they were held underwater in 1930. When Jeff asked, what is your real name? The response was, I cannot reveal myself now. Which kind of gets back to that thing about the rules that Forrest always talks about. Like there's certain rules. They can't violate the rules. And one of the rules is they can't tell you who they are.
Right. Or if they do, it's not true.
Right. Exactly. And that leads to, leads to situations kind of that happen, like in the vertical plane, for instance. Yeah. there are a couple of cases like that. So they continue to ask questions. When asked what the balls of light are, they responded, "Inhabitants of hell." When asked how they traveled from place to place, they responded, "Teleport." So that kind of gives you an idea that these things travel. The most chilling response came when they asked why they hated Jeff so much. The response was, "He has the likeness of my killer."
Okay, that'd do it.
Mm-hmm. And you know that's why Jeff's the target here. Looks like the killer. So finally, they asked if there was anyone in the house they hated. Jeff was the response. Then
again, I think we've established that. It's like, I told you, I hate Jeff.
Yes.
What more do I need to say? How do I prove that I hate Jeff?
And the way that they prove it is they levitate him into the air, much like the dog, and they throw him against the wall.
This, again, I'm fine with. I have no problem with this. I would throw Jeff against the wall too. At this point, as a ghost, I'm so frustrated. I've traveled across dimensions to try to communicate, and they just keep asking me the same shit over and over again. Finally, It's like, you know what? I gotta throw Jeff. I say, well done. Well done and well done.
And we're going to release the video for this on Patreon, but I just like to note for patrons that what you're looking at in the background with me right now is a dramatization of Jeff being thrown against the wall during that Ouija session.
Yeah, and as I pointed out, that's not a trailer. They're in a full ass house.
Yes, it's a nice house, but yeah, Jeff was thrown against the wall and he lay there unconscious for a short period of time before coming out of it. Jeff, though, I give him props. He didn't want to wuss out. They wanted him to leave. They wanted him to get out, but Jeff was like, "No, let's just finish this Ouija session." The entity. They all gathered up. They continued the Ouija session. The entity expressed how important it was that the information could never leave these group of people, could never be, broadcast. No information must leave our circle. It is certain death, is what it said. It revealed that.
Of course, now here we are with the information, so they clearly did not follow those instructions. So. I just want to know who died of certain death.
Right. And what's interesting is, like, again, going back to that episode I did, the UFO window, the entities that were there, the aliens, if you want to call them that, I don't think they called them aliens. They weren't sure exactly who they were or where they came from. But they, at one point, because they took to communicating through stereo at one point, basically said kind of the same thing. Like the voice said something to the effect of, we expect, your guests to keep our existence, a secret, basically. Same kind of thing. Don't talk about them. Don't talk about us to anybody. Don't do it. So there's interesting parallels between these two cases. Which is cool because, like, one's more UFO-y and this one's more spirity. So it revealed that it diminishes when daylight comes, forcing it to depart till nightfall. And when asked if it would leave Jackie alone, its response was 13 months. And that's like soon after the Ouija session ended, mostly because, like, they were doing this late at night and the sun was coming up. So Barry took all that they had learned from this Ouija session, went back to San Pedro, and he did some research. And he hit the microfiche hard, man, like super hard. And
I love that. That's my favorite detail in the whole thing. Yeah. Is that when he went to research something, he had to hit that microfiche hard.
He did.
That tells me what era we're in. That is, these are my people. This is my timeline. That when research meant you go to a library and you go to the basement and you hit the microfiche, that's what I call research.
Yep. he was able to find information about a man whose body was found under a wharf in San Pedro Bay. The body had been in the bay for nearly 2 weeks by the time it was found, and there was a large wound on top of the head. The man's identity was later revealed to be Herman Hendrickson, an itinerant seaman who worked aboard a lumber steamer named Astoria. He was born
I guess that explains the initials SME.
Perhaps.
Oh,
Perhaps.
wait, not at all.
No, it doesn't.
Not at all. That would be more HH. We never got HH, but okay. All right.
No.
All right.
So he was born in Norway on June 27th, 1890. The cause of death was listed as compound fracture of the skull and subsequent drowning. Barry was introduced to an old seaman named Luke Colgis through Susan. He looked at the footage of the night that Jeff was hung in the attic and said that the knot used to hang him was a bowline knot, meaning that whoever hung him had some knowledge about being on a boat.
I think what Luke actually said was, that's a bowline, not.
Quote, this knot is very dangerous in the sense that once tied, it cannot come loose. If Wheatcraft had been elevated several feet higher above the attic floor and dropped down, the rope might have snapped his neck, end quote.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if he'd been on a gallows and it had been 100 years ago and he had been accused of horse thievery, it could have resulted in his death by hanging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they emphasize that the knot, because there is a knot in there, which if it is that kind of knot, that's interesting because you know.
Look, this ghost knew his boat knots.
Yeah. Yep, just knew those boat knots. So the earliest owner of the house, which was built in 1905, was a man named John G. Damon, who died in the house on December 1st, 1913.
And I believe this explains SME.
No, it doesn't. But
oh, you're right. Nice. No, it's J. That would be JGD.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, you're right.
Yes.
No, you're right. You're right. Okay,
yes. Spoiler alert: we don't get any kind of conclusion on the SME front. We don't know. We don't know if this is like some entity of hell or whatever. But
wait a second. Do you remember Peter Pan? Do you remember
Smee?
Disney?
Yeah, Smee. They did make that comparison in the book that the only thing that they could think of with the name Smee was Captain Hook's right-hand man.
Yeah. Captain Hook needed a right-hand man because guess what he didn't have? Yeah. We know. Smee. They were haunted by an animated sailor. All right. That explains the knots. I will say that.
Yeah. So in May of 1990, Jackie drove down to visit Susan, and while she was tidying up her bedroom, both women noticed a softball-sized light that appeared outside of an open window. The two women followed it to the nearby Harbor View Memorial Cemetery, and it led to the grave of John G. Damon. You know?
Wait, hold on. Mm-hmm. They followed a light from their home to a cemetery to a particular grave.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all. Hold on. Here it comes.
There it is. A few days after the seance, Jackie captured the best photographs of the light phenomenon that was occurring in the home. Those are the photos that I showed you. I forgot that this is where that part came in, but the lights would dart around and wobble and then split apart like the ones I saw in the other house. Before long, the luminous objects vanished, and upon doing so, Jackie ran out front and called for Tina to come over and see if they might reappear. Quote, I saw what looked like a pool of water in a very narrow dish with a light under it. Every time Jackie took a flash photo, it would seem to ripple real hard. But when she wasn't taking pictures, it would only ripple a little bit. And Tina was present for this entire exchange, but the lights would dart around and wobble and then split apart like the ones that I saw in the house. Before long, the luminous objects vanished, and upon doing so, Jackie ran out front. I apparently put that in there twice. What the hell? So
hold on, my reaction. You put it in there twice.
There it is. Nah, that's my fuck up. So in May, after several domestic incidents with Al, she moved into a shelter in Lakewood before moving back to San Pedro. And she did experience some paranormal activity while at the shelter. And there was like a luminous apparition that she saw with like another resident that was living there at the time. So about 2 months later, the focus of who experiences the phenomenon shifts, interestingly enough, which I've never heard of this happening before. This is new to me. So it's the 4th of July, 1990. Will Smith hasn't yet kicked alien ass, but the phenomenon would show up on Barry Conrad's doorstep. After falling asleep to the drone of his window air conditioner, he awoke early the next morning to the sound of an explosion. The room around him was silent. It was 3 a.m., the witching hour. He discovered that the lower right portion of his window had been broken, leaving a triangular-shaped piece of glass in the window frame. His air conditioner was off.
This is by far the most horrifying part of this entire story. If you're in LA in the summer and your air conditioner goes off, let me tell you.
Yep.
I'm sitting here right now today. It's 102 outside. It's been this way for 3 days. It's going to be this way for 5 more days. Don't even tell me about an air conditioner malfunctioning or even briefly going off, or I will lose it.
Like, in terms of like horror stories, that seems to be like the peak of it. Like, my generation grew up believing that quicksand was going to be a big problem for us, which turned out to be a total lie. Thanks a lot, William Shatner on Rescue 911 and every other cartoon that I watched as a kid. But it's the real horrors are the lack of air conditioning on hot days. It's absolutely horrendous. Yep.
That's no joke. That's no joke. And if a ghost is pulling that shit, then I say I'm calling it an exorcist, because I'm not gonna settle with a ghost fucking with my air conditioner. It's just not going to happen. Where are you? You're in upstate New York right now. Is it really bad right there?
It's 80 degrees today, and it's like humid as hell. It's humid as hell.
You know what's weird though? In LA, it's humid. That's not normal. Things are getting weird out here.
You guys need to get that shit on lockdown, because that's weird. That's very weird. Normally it's a more pleasant heat. Yeah, it's hot as hell, but like it's not like you're swimming in the air. But now that you are, that's pretty much what summer is like for us up here. It's like high humidity, and I hate it.
Yeah, it's no fun, but you're used to it. But when I walked out the door this morning, and it was like walking into a hot, wet blanket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it.
I can't take it anymore. Too scary.
Oh, it's going to get scarier. So suddenly his clock radio blared to life in the silence. Shadowy figures moved about in the room, and several steps could be heard on the hardwood floors in the apartment. Thinking that his home had been broken into, quickly his mind came to a new fear, that the entity had found its way into Barry's home. Ha ha!
Well, we covered a case called the Tahunga UFO contacts.
Yeah, the Tahunga Canyon alien contacts, yeah.
Right. And wasn't there sort of a weird contagion going on where certain people were seeing things and then other people who heard about it then started saying, like, again, this is weird. I mean, it's weird, but it's not unheard of, because I think this also happened with Skinwalker Ranch. Isn't the thing at Skinwalker where people will experience things at Skinwalker Ranch, or just go to Skinwalker Ranch and perhaps not experience anything, and then upon leaving, phenomena will begin occurring in their lives? I have heard of that.
Yep. Yeah, it's
so maybe that's kind of what's going on here. This is just a particularly persistent phenomenon.
The thing is like, it's not just like, hey, this thing followed me home and I experienced a few things. This thing plagued Barry for a couple of months, which like to the almost the intensity of like what Jackie experienced. When you hear those other experiences, it's like they may experience a few things. Barry like went through a blistering period where like this poltergeist would harass him every 5 minutes. Is what's going to happen here. So he would often find places, things in odd places. The poltergeist was fond of placing a camera tripod on his bed and moving these scissors around that he had in his kitchen. Actually, there's a good photograph of the this happening and there's a picture of like Jeff with this tripod. All right, I'm sharing an image with you. They would often find this tripod on top of Barry's bed, and these metal scissors, which are, like the classic old school metal scissors. He had two pairs of them, and they would be found under his pillows, basically.
That is weird. And the tripod thing is weird. Now that's classic poltergeist. I like that. This is okay. I like this.
Yeah.
It's old school.
Yeah. So the poltergeist was fond of placing that there. It was fond of turning his gas burners on the like full. And there are images of that. I
have a feeling it's going to look like
it's going to
look burners on a stove.
Pretty much like the flames are. Here is one photo of it. They walked into the room and they just captured a photo right there.
Let's see. Oh, wow. That flame is quite high. I'll give him that. But that doesn't even look. Oh, no, it's burning a piece of paper.
Yes.
That's a piece of paper burning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
all right.
There was one evening when Barry was working on a project with Jeff. So like after that series of incidents that had happened that one night when it pretty much denounced itself to Jeff, occasionally it would do something, but like on there were 2 successive nights that with Jeff that things got really intense. So after working on a project one evening with Jeff, they returned to his apartment and examined the pane of glass that had shattered. He had initially thought that it was like from a gunshot, a bullet, but he couldn't find the bullet anywhere in his apartment, and it just didn't seem like it was. It didn't have the characteristics of that. So they had swept it up, and they had bagged it. And when they did, the bag began to vibrate as if someone was looking around inside of it for something. And then the movement died down. So they quickly just like tied it up and brought it outside to the dumpster. When they came back inside, the main jagged shard of glass was discovered on Barry's typewriter an hour later after they had returned home from dinner. And they basically walked into the apartment, and this is how they found that triangular piece of glass.
Triangular shard of glass. Let's see if this picture delivers. Oh my God, that picture delivers. Look at that. That's very threatening. That's a big jagged piece, and it's just poking right up. I mean, it's like there's no way you can miss it. Wow. Okay, I give it my highest rating.
It's getting the highest psi rating from Rich here. It's good. It's yeah. So so this stuff kind of happens on like 2 separate nights. On the last one that would see like the most intense activity. Barry, Jeff, and Gary Bain were around. They had worked on a project, and it was kind of like a game of anticipation on what would happen next, because every 5 minutes something would happen, and it particularly favored the gas jets, the gas burner on the stove. Like, they'd walk into the kitchen and it would be there. There's a video of them in the kitchen at one point, and like the scissors kind of like fall from like high up and onto the ground. The tripod stuff. There's like whiteout that is moved. At one point, Jeff is looking at the lens of Gary's camera. He finds some weird stuff on it, and this would happen a bunch of times. So here's a photograph of it. There are these scribbles on the lens.
Okay, let's see if this is just a. What the hell am I looking at?
So
what? I'm looking at a lens, but that does. Oh, I see. Okay, I guess that is. Yeah, it is just sort of a. All right, kind of a weird, greasy scribble. It looks almost like the number 8, sort of written over and
kind
over.
of. Yeah.
All right.
So every time that Barry wiped it off, he said it had the consistency of like a grease pen. And it would appear on the lens like multiple times. And it was like different colors each time. I think he said at one point it was like black, and then there was like a purplish color, something like that. And
I also notice it says here that they experienced poltergeist phenomena at Barron's Restaurant in Burbank.
Yes,
one night in 1990.
Yes,
this is Barone's. This is a picture of that restaurant, the interior of the restaurant. Very
so
old school looking.
Is it still there?
It's still there. Oh yeah, that's it.
They reopened it because they said that they closed it down in the book. So I'm now this place is spelled slightly differently, but it's a famous restaurant in Burbank, but it's Barone's, not Barron's. So I don't know if it's a different one, but okay.
But if you ever come out here, Rob, you and I can go there. It looks like I had a pretty good pizza and some steaks.
Hell yeah, man!
Yeah. What the hell?
Definitely.
So I was excited about that because remember how Scott had a poltergeist experience?
Yes.
At Morton's Steakhouse in the bathroom.
Yep. Yeah.
Suddenly, I like it when it happens in public.
Yeah.
I'm talking about poltergeist stuff.
So during that particular experience, they saw like the light above their table like moving, and like the table would vibrate. But yeah, around the final series of events before like everything would die down, a lot of the activity was centered around those burners. Like they would be drawn to another room where they would hear something, and they'd come back out 5 minutes later. There's a burner that is on. There's a moment where there was a broom placed on the burner. There was also a piece of paper. I think it was like a receipt or something that was being burned on the burner. They had turned it like whoever had done
that's
it.
When we saw. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, the way the broom is placed is classic poltergeist.
Yeah.
You look at that and it's just like, yeah, that is a poltergeist. It's just it's got the top of the broom, the opposite the bristles, just sort of jammed in, and then the broom is standing up and leaning against the wall. It's very poltergeisty.
Yeah. Here's another photograph. They walked into the kitchen at one point, and they saw a knife on the ground standing up.
All right. Let's see if this Oh, for sure. I mean, it's just like poked into that little. There's like a little area, like a little mat, like like a little section of carpeting, and the knife is just poked into it, standing straight up. That's classic. Love it. Love it. I give it my highest rating.
They're excellent. So, Jeff was also attacked during this series of events. He had like scratch marks on his back.
Classic. Again, that happens. That does happen.
It does. I don't know if I have images of that, but yeah, it was scary and stuff. But that's pretty much. The other really scary part is that there was one point when they walked out into the kitchen and they found, because Jeff had a 22 caliber handgun in his apartment, he found the bullets on the burner. It wasn't on, but it was like right on top of the burner. So had it been turned on, that wouldn't have ended well at all.
Oh yeah, no. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. But everything kind of died down after that. Jackie, she felt like something was still there, but it wasn't as powerful as it had been. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that her life was getting better. Like things were improving. And
was Al out of the way?
Yeah, Al was out of the picture like permanently. So that brings us to the end here. And one question that I have is, how do I frame this? Is what Jackie was going through with Al the culprit here? Is this what the cause is? Or is it something else? Because it's not fully directly related to, it is most of the time directly, Jackie's thing, but as we see, it's other people, it's these folks. So what do you think in this case?
Well, it's like so many of these cases, they'll talk about a poltergeist case and they'll say, oh, at the center of it was a troubled 13-year-old girl who was, having, difficulties at school and, was morose and arguing with her parents. And it's like, but that's every 13. It's like, it's like if there's a poltergeist associated with every teenager who was feeling angst, there'd be a poltergeist in the house of every teenager. It wouldn't even be a thing. We'd all know what it was. It would just be another aspect of puberty or adolescence. So it's hard to sort of say, oh yeah, she was having a bad time in her marriage and her husband, or her boyfriend, or whatever this guy was kind of a jerk and would get violent. That's millions of cases. We would have nothing but hauntings if that was the thing that caused it. Now, and then looked at conversely, if you just go, well, look at every haunting and see if there's any trouble at that house. Yes, there's going to be trouble at that house because unfortunately we live in a culture where there's just tons of unhappy households where physical violence might play a role. So even looked at that way. And even when you look at it that way, there's probably just as many cases where there's a haunting where the family, there was no problem at all. So I think that's our go-to, and we want there to be some connection there, because then we can self-select ourselves away from it and say, well, maybe I'm not having a great relationship, but it's not as bad as that, so I won't get haunted. I don't know if you can say that. Even the famous, poltergeists love to appear in homes where there's an unhappy adolescent. I don't know. Mm-hmm. We know that poltergeist cases get reported. We know that the sort of phenomenon it tends to be similar, but the fact that she was involved in a crappy relationship, I don't know. I just don't know. I'm glad things got better, but in both cases, in terms of the relationship and in terms of the haunting. But it seems like a weird connection. Unless we say, I think there's got to be another hidden factor. If an evil spirit or a rambunctious spirit or a poltergeist in whatever sense is attracted to troubled human energy, there has to be another factor that we're not aware of that's much more rare that allows certain people in these certain cases to be the center of these kinds of situations.
Yeah. Like I don't understand, and I can't comprehend why this particular case is so violent and how it was able to be so violent in manifest in those kind of ways, whether you choose to accept what they're saying, what they're reporting, what is in the documentary. Like, if you accept everything that they're talking about, what forces are able to, make this into the strong case that it is, like, in terms of the phenomenon experience, like, how, like, it just seems like a 1 in a million case, in that, one guy was and could have been killed in that attic.
Right. Yeah.
And like, you have kind of other instances where, that one particular one where Jackie was attacked. You had that other instance when Jeff was thrown against a wall. You have that other instance where those bullets were placed on that stove. And I think what's interesting is about that in particular is that it seemed like, okay, we could turn on the stove burners. We could put the bullets there, but we can't turn on the burner at the same time. Like, again, like, are there those rules that you can't kill anybody? You can try, but you can't kill anybody. Like, it seemed like they were breaking the ultimate rule when they went after Jeff Wheatcraft. Like, it seemed like an anger so vitriolic and so potent that it literally almost killed a man. And like, you kind of have to wonder, if there are rules, what are the repercussions for that spirit now?
Right. And well, and what allows the energy to be able to get that far? Because there's all kinds of malevolent hauntings, but very few result in physical attacks on people.
Yeah.
I mean, it does happen. People have been scratched and people's clothing is caught on fire. But I don't know. I get maybe the question is, why doesn't it happen more? And I'm glad it doesn't, but people don't, you'd almost think that if it is performative, if people are just lying and seeking attention, then it seems like there'd be more cases reported of, my life was put in danger because I want the attention. Look at me, a ghost is trying to kill me. But it is not the most common reported element of a poltergeist case. It just isn't. Real violent physical attacks may happen every once in a while, but nowhere near in the majority of cases.
No, and I think what's interesting about this particular case is that it's not more widely known. Like, it's not that case that poltergeist case that everybody like pulls out of their pocket when they talk about poltergeist cases, like, the Bell Witch, or, Jeff the Talking Mongoose kind of has more of a reputation than the San Pedro Haunting does. And I find that interesting. Like, one of the supposedly best documented cases, one of the most violent poltergeist cases, and it's not commonly talked about by anybody, and I don't really know why that is, and I don't know if it's because of the legacy that this case has. Yeah, there's a book about it. A lot of people don't know about it. There's a documentary that was put out.
All right,
a lot of people don't know it.
I'm sorry. Didn't know about the book. God.
You're fine. Like, Barry Taff wrote briefly about it in his book, but it's just like, I don't know, why is this case not more widely known? It makes me wonder.
Yeah, it is a little bit strange. I don't know if it's because it takes place in two locations. I don't know if it's because it does, it seems a little, look, it's hard. we get into that place, and we touched on it earlier about at what point do you stop believing in a case?
Right.
You know, and is it when there's not enough evidence, when there's too much evidence, when the evidence doesn't fit into what your framework of what this thing should be? Yeah. I mean, for a minute, I was sort of like, well, do you get to a point where you just sort of pick and choose? It's like, no, something happened, but not those things. Like, I don't believe the neck thing, but I believe all the other stuff. And it's sort of like, you could go there.
Right.
But I don't know. At a certain point, I feel like, okay, I guess I'll like what, you know, I don't know enough about Jeff Wheatcraft. Was he a guy who desperately needed attention? Is that the reason that, you know, he's got a lot of stories, and yet a lot of the things he experienced were witnessed by other people. So it's not just him saying, oh, by the way, when I drove home, guess what I saw? You know, I guess I'm in for a penny, in for a pound. This one sounds like a real bad one. I just wish it was still going on and the house was still there and I could drive by and take a picture. That's all I want.
That's right. We have Rich Haddam, the true tourist in this story, wanting to go get that final picture. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, the Amityville house. It doesn't look like it used to, so it's just it doesn't have that. So, like, in this case, Rich, you're left with an empty lot, and we are left with no answers to any of this, as is typical of any episode of Our Strange Skies or even Astonishing Legends. Most of the time, hey, you don't get any answers, but
no, you just get to spend some time with your supernatural buddies.
Yep. And you get to record a podcast. So, Rich, thank you so much for coming on for this episode, man. This was fantastic.
My pleasure, Rob. You know, I'm always here, willing to do the extra credit to just try to get my grade up from just up to a C minus.
Yeah,
I just want to. I should just take these. I should do these podcasts pass fail. Frankly,
exactly. You got to do it pass fail. That's the best way to do it. It's the only way that anybody should be doing anything. You know, if you enjoy this, if you enjoy Rich, you should follow him on Twitter at Richard Haddam, because you know, one of the best follows. Rich, you just got back from, you know, Montreal or from Toronto like a few weeks ago. So.
Got back and I'm going back. I'm flying out on Labor Day Monday. I got to be back up there for fans of Titans, and I know, you know, the audience is chock full of them, as it should be. Yeah. I have to go up this week to cover the final conflict in the final episode of season 4. There's a big sequence in a big set, and I have to go there for some reason, because God knows I've got to be there to make sure this goes off well, because, you know, having a director, a full cast of professionals, a stunt team, a VFX crew, and 200 other craftsmen, that's not enough. I got to be standing there going, oh, it's good. Anyway, I'm going to be up there all week, Monday through Friday, supervising to make sure that we deliver the greatest television content we can. So tune into HBO Max and watch Titans. The first 3 seasons are available now. Season 4 premieres, I believe, now on November 3rd. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I've been told. But check your local listings and check out Titans on HBO Max.
Yes. And there it is. The best plug. If you want to, you know, follow us along on social media, check out the TeePublic shop, where there's a lot of good designs. And if you want to, you know, check out the Patreon, just check the show notes. There's going to be a link tree there that'll take you to most of that. The show notes are going to include links to the documentary, to the book, and to everything that I could possibly fit in there. And the website should be back up by now. It should be rolled out by the time that this comes out. Special thanks to Floats for our theme song, to Spencer Worth Davis for editing, Megan Lagerberg for our logo, and for the great Desdemona for all those t-shirt designs. And finally, don't forget to look up, because you never know what you'll find in Our Strange Skies or in your attic in San Pedro, terrorizing the hell out of you. In gray, we trust.
Mexico. On the way back home, maybe, I don't know.